10,000 hours ain't enough for the goal. I see your head. I'm inspired when the stats of my foes are being read. Make visible wherever I go. I'm seeing red. This pain that don't want me to grow, but I'm being led.
There you go.
Driven by motivation. What you call a
Wait, what's happening?
There we go.
Wait, is it on?
Oye, pero nomás salgo yo.
Wait, really?
You gotta do the window. There you go. Do the, all right, this is a trial and error. Do the speaker view or the enter full screen gallery so that we both are on.
What are you seeing?
There you go. Now you got it. There we go. Finally got
it.
If somebody's out there, can you let us know if you can hear us?
Man, that was quite an experiment there.
All right. Yeah, an experiment. That's technology for you. Let's just wait to see if anybody can tell us if you can listen to us.
People gave up on us, man.
No, I can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you. So this is Beto Gurmilan live, reloaded, trial number 2. An hour late.
We're on an hour late, but hey.
Hey, we got the time.
Exactly. What else are you gonna do?
We got the time. So let's just backtrack all the way back. I think people now are gonna be able to hear us. So let's share this.
Wait, did they hear your like what the show is about? That they heard.
Yeah, because they couldn't hear you. So I'm gonna go.
I got it.
So let's go ahead and let's go back. Nothing happened. Nothing happened from this.
Nothing happened. No.
Yeah, nobody knows. Nobody saw. So anyway, man. So yeah, technology, bad internet. I don't know what it was, but
man,
anyway.
That's been my story of my life for the past 2 weeks, I swear.
Troubleshooting. So let's reset our conversation. Let's reset our show.
Okay.
I mean, it's Facebook, so we're cool. You know, if this was television, we'd be fired.
Oh, you're fired. Yeah.
I think our friends probably fired us and went to Netflix and watched, Narcos or whatever. No, but again, so thanks for joining, man. This is the first time I'm doing this, so it's just like a really cool learning experience. and like we talked about, just gives us an opportunity to have a cool conversation and also just to grab the mic once again, right? That's the cool part.
Dude. Once again, of course. Little plug there.
Little plug further. So anyway, the whole purpose of this little show, hopefully I'll be able to do it every week during quarantine. Everybody's doing their own thing. I think this is a fun thing that has come out of something that's very, very difficult and a crisis that's affecting a lot of people. I know a lot of people are getting out of or going out of work, and a lot of stuff is going on that's negative. Yeah. So maybe this is an opportunity for us to bring a little bit of a positive thing to everybody. So
sure, yeah.
So anyway, man, I want to thank you for joining. I know we're buddies. I know we're friends, but you're making time, and I know you're busy fixing your computer or whatever. So just want to thank you for joining and for doing this, man. I know a lot of people are interested in finding out about what you do and how you got there and all that stuff.
No, hey, man, thank you, man. I'm honored to be the first guest here on Beto Gurmilan Live, man. So this is awesome.
So how are you? We were talking about this when we didn't have your audio. But tell us a little bit, how are you handling, or how's quarantine going for you? How's, isolation or near isolation going for you in terms of your life?
It's been, well, now, like I said, I think, I said earlier, officially was put on furlough on this past Tuesday. So I'm now getting into kind of like, that mentality of like kind of, I was obviously quite busy with work, working from home. Up until Tuesday, and so now I've been just kind of like trying to find things to do. Pretty much, I'm trying to stick to somewhat of a routine as I did when I was going to the office, and so by that is like getting up in the morning and working out, doing a little bit of exercise, and then kind of at this point kind of like reading up on the news, obviously, and then just kind of doing stuff around the house or putting away stuff. Organizing, doing tutorials, on other things that I could learn for work,
For me, I know the first couple of weeks were a difficult transition for me because I'm always out and about and meetings and stuff like that. And now I'm mostly doing remote work and working from my home office. Has it changed your body, your health, your sleeping patterns, anything like that?
Definitely the sleeping pattern. Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, this is kind of, we can go really deep into this, but yeah, I mean, like, I used to wake up when I was going to the office. I used to get up really early. Well, I mean, early to go to the gym. I would go to the gym before work. So I would get up between, depending on the day, 5:15 and 6. And now I'm like slowly been getting up later, like up until like 9. Is sleeping in. But then of course my schedule, I go to bed like last time I went to bed like at 1 in the morning, where before I would go to bed like 11 was like going to bed late. So yeah, that's definitely changed. Like but now it's like, now I'm just like kind of, how can I say it? It's like now I'm just, that's my new schedule now.
Yeah. Definitely for me definitely was a transition. So obviously right now you're working in Hollywood, you work in Los Angeles, you're working for the awesome show Netflix, and obviously you didn't get there straight from your upbringings in Tijuana, although that played a big part in it. When was it the moment for you where you started thinking about film, where you started thinking about editing, where you started thinking about, doing some sort of work in the future in production or directing or that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, for me, film, like I knew I wanted to work in film. I mean, since I was a kid. I mean, I really remember, like, I think it was like, watching Star Wars, original Star Wars, and then like E.T., all the big blockbuster, films, that I knew I wanted to, like, that's what I wanted to do or be involved in. I just loved film. I think initially it was those type of films, like the big blockbusters, that got me into visual effects. Like that's what I was fascinated with. I was fascinated with computers, and so that's what I would always kind of mess around with my uncle's computer. He had an old Apple IIe back in the day, and just always I was always breaking stuff, man.
Yeah.
Still to this day. But just always trying to figure out what things computers do and how they do it and this and that. And so then like when I got into like middle school and high school, I was always the one with a camera. Like my grandpa and my uncle were always into photography. Really, my family, my aunts, and everyone was like, they were really artsy and just always into the arts, music, film, photography. I got into that.
Did you have a dream? Did you have something that you wanted to shoot for? Like, I want to create a film, or what was the dream that you had at that age, at a young?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, at that age, I guess I wanted to be making those movies. I didn't know how, and but I was like, man, I want to be on that set. I want to see my credit like on the screen, like, and that I was involved in that film. I mean, obviously, I think initially it was like, before I knew what it took to make a film, like I just knew there was like a director. Like that's what I knew. Yeah. I didn't know about like that there was writers and then like an editor, a cinematographer, a production. I was just like, oh, there's a director, Steven Spielberg, and so that's what I guess initially what I wanted to do. I guess if you go way back,
right.
And then yeah, I mean, like once I started, then when I got to high school, I remember I really got into Martin Scorsese films.
Nice.
And I remember even before that, I remember a neighbor of mine gave me a VHS copy of Taxi Driver, and it was like, what is this film? I was a kid. I wasn't even watching it. I was like, what is this? This is intense and like,
it's the best thing ever.
It's like, how can this be made on film? I was just used to watching, like I said, E.T. and all these like kind of PG-13 films or whatever. And then it was like Taxi Driver, and then I'm like, who's this Martin Scorsese? And then later down the line, when he made Goodfellas and Casino, that was like, I want to be Martin Scorsese. Like that was it. Like that was in early high school.
So you went to Michigan, University of Michigan.
With University of Michigan, but at that time, I remember I wanted to major in computer science because I wanted to. I still had that like kind of visual effects thing and computers, and so I wanted to do. That's what I got into. Very quickly, I realized that I was not good at math. I had never been good at math.
Who is?
And so, yeah, there's people out there that love it, man. I don't know why.
I don't know any.
Yeah, and so I was like, nope, computer science is not my thing. And actually, at that time, I was like, what do I do? Like probably like most people, I go to school, college or whatever. Like, I was like, should I go into business? Should I go to kinesiology? I couldn't figure out. I'm like, well, I've always loved film and TV. so I'm going to do that. And so I that's what I majored in college.
Cool. So you're starting to become what you were setting out to be. Obviously, it's a long road there. It's a difficult process to break into the business. It's not. I mean, there's fantasy stories, right, of people that just break in right on. You had to come back home. You had to pay your dues, and that's a bad thing. That's a bad way of saying it. I mean, you have to get experience in local television.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, like my if you think about it, I mean, like from graduating college, I mean, and I'm dating myself here, but like I mean, it was a 20-year journey to get to where I wanted to be. Like really what my dream job was. I mean, like it took me 20 years. But yeah, at the time when I graduated from college, I remember like I had no idea how to work in film. Like I just didn't know how, because it's not something that you just go like look online and there's some job postings. Like it doesn't work that way. It's all about who you know and word of mouth, and that's how it plays out. But then I came back to San Diego, and then after I met you, I worked in local TV and Univision, and then so that's where that was really like what was like my hands-on training, because like in college our program was really theory based, so it taught you a lot about theory of film, which is great. I mean, it's good to understand how film is done, some way, how it's shot, and what's the theory behind compositions and all these things. And so when I got to work in local news, I started using cameras, editing, some even engineering. I mean, everything. You did everything, especially at that station. You just did everything.
And I know you loved it, because I know I saw you work, and you were very creative. And I think in terms of what you did in television, I could tell that you were creative and that you were kind of constrained by the whole format of television.
Yeah,
different things and creative things. When was it that you decided to, what, I need to break out of local television. I need to go search for something different where my creative juices can flow?
Yeah, I mean, I was there for 3 years, and I have obviously it was great. It treated me really well. I learned a lot, but it was just I just desired something, what I deemed more creative, and I needed that, and so like about 3 years, I decided to look for something else. At that point, I just didn't know. I guess there was also some fear. There was a lot of fear of leaving home,
leaving zone, right?
I was in the comfort zone. Like I didn't have yet at that point that motivation, I guess, or I wasn't brave enough to like go to LA, because it's just like I was comfortable. So I stuck around in San Diego and went to another local station, but this time I was working in the creative services department, which they do promos and commercials and stuff like that. So it was a little more creative in the sense that now you were shooting, you're writing a script, shooting scenes, and adding graphics, and so it was a little more involved, and so that was appealing, and so I stuck around there for I guess another 3 years, and then again when I had another kind of like, all right, I need more, it's like I need something bigger, and that's when I decided to move to New York.
So just if you're just joining us, this is Joaquin Elizondo, editor of the series Narcos on Netflix. Awesome series, and he's talking about his journey to where he's at right now. So then you get to New York, and then you get to experience a whole different animal, right? In terms of the business.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean that because I pretty much I was in San Diego again. I was just kind of like, I just said I need something. I want to work on bigger projects. Like I just want to. Like, again, like nothing wrong with what I'm doing. It's just that it's not for me. I just want something more. I want more. And for me, more meant bigger, like national type of shows. At that point, I can't even tell you that I was even thinking about film, because I just didn't even know how to get there. I just wanted to work on, say, like, stuff for like big cable shows,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, what I did, I just decided to quit my job in San Diego and move to travel in Southeast Asia for a month, go backpacking, and then move to New York with no job, no nothing, no contacts, just went for it.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I was beyond scared, man. I mean, I remember you and I talked before I left, and then when I went from San Diego, I flew to New York was staying with my uncle there. And then like 2 days later, I flew to Bangkok. And I remember when I woke up that morning for my flight to Bangkok, I opened my eyes and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, what am I doing? This is crazy. Like, you know, and, but it was the most amazing experience of my life. I mean, I mean, that was just, amazing. What was amazing about it was that when I went there, it was, you know, I thought it was just me, that the only one that was doing this, that I was like, man, I just quit my job. I had security. Like, what am I, like, it's nuts. And then when I got there, I found that so many people were doing the same thing from all over the world. Everyone was like quitting their jobs, and, you know, that's what you do. You go to Thailand, I guess, or Southeast Asia, and you just travel and you find yourself, you know, or whatever. And so it was so comforting to meet all these people that were like literally doing the same thing that I was doing.
So now you find yourself in the Big Apple in New York. There's a bunch of people also doing the same thing. It's a huge city. It's expensive. It's hustle and bustle. What was that first break that you got in New York that really led to kind of where you're at right now?
Well, the big break that I got in New York, another story. It's like, you know, and I got to New York, I didn't know anyone. I had probably one contact, which was someone that we had worked with at our old station, who is now the head of the same station up in New York. So I met with them, and I was able to get like a freelance gig. See, I had always been a full-time employee. So now going into this freelance thing where you don't know what your next job is going to be or when you're going to get work, like that was frightening. I mean, by itself, I mean, that was like, I couldn't even wrap my head around that concept of that type of living. Because I always had a paycheck, you know, I had a weekly paycheck. Now it's like, whoa, stable paycheck. Now I'm like, when am I going to work? How am I going to pay my bills? So anyways, that kept me going. I was working at a local TV station again in New York. And I was like a couple months into it, sure, I was surviving, but it was like, man, I didn't move to New York to do this again. Like, that's not the reason why I came here. So I just started hustling, man, and trying to meet people and doing, just going to all these meetings, doing free work and just trying to meet people. And eventually I got to, there was a posting, I think about they needed a shooter editor for HBO Sports.
Nice.
And I was like, man, I love HBO Sports. I mean, this was for boxing. I was like, this is great. Yeah. And so I got really good at stalking people's email addresses, like, because you had to, you know, find a way to get in. So I found a way to, you know, just got really good at getting people's email addresses, like people who were hiring, and was able to land an interview with the creative director for HBO Sports. And I bugged them forever, and I got the gig. It's a freelance gig, and I went to a couple fights, which was really fun. Yeah. And then I met a guy there who said, "Hey man," one day he said, "Hey man, like I got this gig next week, but I can't, you know, because I was freelance." He's like, "I can't make the gig, but how about you take it?" I'm like, "Sure, man. What's the gig?" It's like, "It's a talk show on Bravo, you know," and I'm like, "Yeah, man, I need whatever, I'll take it." So the show ended up being Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. Mm-hmm. And at that time, when I got that gig, it was barely starting. It was really small. And then like within a few years, it blew up. And then eventually became the lead editor on that show. And so then I got to,
That's a really interesting story, because, and I'll just share a little bit of, it happened to me as well. The first break that I got, the first opportunity, was because somebody didn't go or couldn't do it, right? So I think a lesson for young people that are aspiring to break into the business or to do something that they've been wanting to do all their lives, and you know, the reason why they went to school and college and all this stuff, is always be ready, right? Because the opportunity is going to show up, and if you're not ready for that opportunity, you can't seize it.
You can't see, exactly. So it's like, you know, and that's the thing. It's like that to get to that point, it took me a while, because I had to change. Like when I got to New York, I had to change my mentality. Like it was a whole new city, very cutthroat, competitive, you know, city. And so I had to change my mentality about everything, how I approach people for jobs, how I write my resume, how I write emails. I mean, it was this whole thing that I had to just revamp. And it took a while, man. I mean, I didn't get my first gig for 6 months, and then, you know, I didn't get to like HBO thing until probably like a year, over a year later. Right. It took a while, you know, just to figure stuff out. Yeah. Like one key thing that I figured out was like, you know, I was so used to in San Diego doing being a one man band type of deals, you know, where you shoot, you edit, you do everything. And I think like in what these, especially in New York and now here in LA, it's like people want you to do one thing and do it good, you know. And so I had to learn that concept of like, if I'm gonna sell myself as a cameraman, that's what I'm gonna do, just that, or an editor, you know. Anyways, but you're right. It's like, goes back to just being, you got to really be prepared. So at that moment when you get that opportunity, you're ready to go.
Right.
You know,
so you started getting some experience, and you started working with Bravo, the channel, and your resume was building. Tell me a little bit about the moment where you decided to come back to California. You didn't really come back home 100%, but you're closer to home, and you knew you wanted to come back to Los Angeles and Hollywood.
Yeah, I think about 3 years into, I was in New York for 5 years, and at the third year, I started realizing that New York was just not for me. I love New York. I mean, I love it. I still miss it, but it's just not for me. Like I can't live there. I'll visit it anytime, but I cannot live there. Just simply because of the weather. Weather is one thing. That's enough.
Yeah.
You know. So about year 3, I started to realize that I'm gonna eventually make the move back to LA, and then so year 5 decided to move to LA because that's where the work is, and it's close to San Diego. It's great, you know, for what I do. You know, it's LA is the obvious choice. And so year 5, I moved back, and again, no job, nothing, just you know, I just like let's go, because I guess I had done it already and done it in New York. That fear that I had when I left to New York, like at that point was gone.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, yeah, you know, and I gotta admit, I was a little bit cocky, a bit too confident about being like working in such a big city and getting to a point, because I got to a point in New York where I was working nonstop. Like I was really stable. I was set in New York. And so I was a little overly confident, and I was like, I'll be fine, LA, you know. And then I quickly find out that that was not the case, man.
It's a whole different culture, a whole different business, a whole different city with different, you know, people doing the different things. So I would imagine it was a difficult transition as well. But again, so I remember you coming to LA and you started hustling, doing the same thing that you were doing over there, right? Trying to find opportunities.
Yeah, and then so when I got to LA, that was a big shock, because like, you know, when I realized that, I think it was harder in LA than in New York for me. Mm-hmm. And I think because when I got to LA, I was, like I said, I was a little bit too confident, and then it was like everyone, like no one would take meetings with me. No one, because I just had this weird resume. Mm-hmm. No one knew me in this town. I had this weird resume that I just kind of worked in all these different things. But in LA, it was like, again, it's going back to this thing that like people want you to do seems like one thing, and if like you don't have that experience or that skill, like it's just very tough for them to kind of, you know, look at you. And so yeah, it was more of a shock, like I said, because I had then now been used to this lifestyle in New York, and then to get here and like, I mean, I was getting no work whatsoever, and it was like a huge shock. And so I was still trying to get work in what I was doing in New York. Like I was trying to work in like talk shows, sports, documentary. But because this film thing was like, I don't even know how to do that. Yeah. Like so I just want to get work. I need to make money. I need to, you know, that's why my mentality. And I'll get to that eventually, because it's a big thing, or something I touch upon when people ask me for advice. And so then when I was not getting work at all, I was like, well, I guess I should try getting into this film thing, because I'm not making any money right now. Like I just need to get my foot in the door and like work for free and be an assistant or whatever. Like I have nothing to lose. Like I don't have anything. And so I always tell them thanks. So one of the people that taught me a lot about what to do and how to do it was Zach Arnold, who is a big time editor here in LA. He's been doing it longer than I have, and but the funny thing is that we went to school together. We went to University of Michigan together. Mm-hmm. We were classmates back in the day. So we reconnected, and he still does. He has a website called Optimize Yourself. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, it was called Fitness in Post, and it was about about how keeping healthy, and like people have like sedentary jobs, say like editors or anyone, like graphic designers, like how to maintain a healthy lifestyle. But along that, he also had a lot of podcasts about like career advice and also people trying to get from like, say, working in how to get into TV and film, like TV series and film, how to break in. So anyways, I listened to all his podcasts, took his advice, and then just did that, which was a lot of networking. Had to like really focus on building a good networking skills. And that was a big part of it. And then also kind of like the only way to do it was to take a step back. And for me, taking a step back was to become an assistant. I couldn't continue being an editor because I had to become an assistant in order to get my foot in the door. And so but even that was hard because I had no assistant experience. So even that was difficult. Yeah.
So you had to basically change your whole mindset and kind of, was it difficult on your ego because you were already doing all these bigger projects and doing, different jobs, and now you have to take a step back and kind of take a different road. Was it difficult on your ego, maybe on your confidence? How did you feel during that time when you had to take a step back?
I gotta say, I'll definitely say that was not a problem. Like I never had a problem with becoming an assistant and like taking a step back, because I was always had the mentality like I'll do whatever it takes. I know that some people that I've talked to, like say like for example, I'm an editor, like I'll never go back to assisting, like that's fine, But for me, I gotta say that was never an issue. Like I would have worked as a production assistant. I mean, whatever it would have taken to get to where I want to be. Or where I wanted to be. So in that regard, no, that was not a problem. The problem really was just anyone to give me a shot, to give me give me a chance to work on a project, and that was really difficult. It was so difficult that I was already looking at plan B. Like what else can I do, because this is not working out.
Did you ever think, okay, I'm just gonna quit, I need to figure out something else?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was close. I mean, there was the way things happened. Like, it's just even looking back, it's just crazy because I was close. I was really close. I mean, I remember writing an email I wanted to work. I was like, you know what? There was this local brewery by where we lived, and I was going to ask them if they needed a guy to like clean their their warehouse.
To drink their beer.
To drink their beer, obviously. No, because one of the things I want to do is like be like a brewmaster or like, and so at that point, and so I was like, that'd be cool. I just didn't. I was like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. And then things started happening. But yeah, I came close to pulling the plug.
What do you think was that got you through that moment? What was it that got you through? And I know you said things started happening, but what do you think it was that made you break through that, difficult time in your career?
I think, just that desire to really get to where I want to be. Like I knew it was a point in my life, and I was just older now. I knew that I still had that drive, I still had that drive where I was like, I still have enough energy to be like hustling out there, to be really like being put through the ringer, and so I'm like, I need to do this. Like, I don't want to do anything else. Like there's nothing else that you can tell me that I want to do. It's always been my dream to work in film and TV. And so I'm going to just do whatever it takes. And so every time that I was going to quit, like I just remember, like, you know what? No, this is what I want. And I can't be in the worst place right now. Like obviously my savings were running out, like they were running low. That was the thing, obviously. But I still had enough I still had money, So it's like, well, I guess until I run out of money, I'm gonna do it if there was like a timetable. But it was like really like just that desire, man, to just achieve my goal and to my dream, really.
All right. So next, I want to jump to now where you're at, how you got through into editing for Narcos. But give me a second. I think we got a lot of people still. It's cool. So we finally got our live. I keep looking over and I keep getting comments. I just want to tell everybody thank you for being here. We're going to take a small break to.
That's awesome.
to acknowledge our sponsors. Gurmilan Foundation is our sponsor. No, we don't have any sponsors. But
I gotta plug Duprat.
Duprat clothing. There you go. No, but if you guys out there on Facebook land, if you want to post your question, I know there's a couple of questions there about your favorite Scorsese film. We'll get to the questions in a minute. But if you have any more questions, I see a hamburger being posted by Manny right there.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah, we'll get to the questions. We'll get some questions in a minute. But let's talk about now Netflix, because I think that's a lot of people now recognize you, or they know that you've been working now for Netflix and for the series Narcos. How was it that you got through and you got into Narcos? I know you said you were doing some assistant editing, but obviously this is a huge show. This just blew up, and obviously it has a history. Tell us a little bit of how you got into Narcos and what it's like working there.
Yeah, so I'll do the short version because it was a series of events. But really, what happened was, so I was working as I was working on a project, on a documentary for Netflix. It was the Kate del Castillo Chapo thing called The Day I Met El Chapo.
Oh yeah.
So I had originally applied for that job as an editor, and I never heard back. And then I applied as an assistant editor. I went in for the interview, and I didn't get the job. I was like, man, I was just striking out all over. And like a week later after the interview, the post supervisor, he calls me. He's like, hey man, it's like, I have this position. He's like, it's for a post coordinator. He's like, I don't know if you'd be interested, or if you know someone, let me know. The thing is, being a post coordinator, like, I guess it's like, it's more of the administrative side of post production, which is, not necessarily what I want to do. I want to be on the creative side, which is editing. But it was also like a step back from even assisting, So there, I guess my ego did play a role.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I can't take this. Like, I can't go like that back, And then good old Adeline, who always, I got to hand it to her. My girlfriend, she always gives the right advice and talks sense into me. She's like, you know what? He's like, I know that's not necessarily what you want to do, but you're not out there working like at companies. No one's getting to know you.
Yeah.
You're not creating a network. It's like, you need to take this job, and you're also not making any money. It's like, you got to get out there and work. It's like, I was like, but it was more so in the sense that you need to be out there meeting people. Like, that's a value. So I said, yeah, you're right. And so I decided to take that job. It was a great job, great crew, obviously a great show. It was fun about it. Eventually, the assistant editor on that gig left. So they bumped me up to the assistant editor. So I saw through the delivery of that show. And at the end, when they got it was the craziest, I stepped up and delivered the show. Anyways, okay, so that's done. I went away and did other stuff. Down months later, maybe after we wrapped that show, down the line, maybe I remember it was in December of 2016, I think, or 2017. I get an email from what I then came to know. Well, I got an email from someone saying, hey, I saw that you worked on the Chapo documentary. Would you mind sharing your researcher's name for our show? He didn't say what show, but at the bottom in the signature, it said Narcos Productions. I'm like, oh, maybe Chapo documentary, Narcos Productions. Okay, you can just go on IMDb and look at the stuff. So yeah, he was the post producer for Narcos. And so I give him the researcher's name, blah, blah, and at the end I put PS. I'm like, hey, by the way, if you need an assistant, let me know. He writes back, I think right away. He's like, hey, so do you speak Spanish, and are you in the union? In the editors union? I'm like, why, yes. He's like, hey, can you meet Monday? I'm like, what? So I got an interview for Narcos on Monday. And so I go to the interview and blah, blah, it goes great. And then I get hired on Narcos as an assistant. And then things just, take off from there. But that's how it happened. That was something I couldn't,
couldn't
I
plan
didn't go
it, yeah.
necessarily. I couldn't plan it. I didn't go necessarily looking for it. It just, like you said, going back to what you said about being ready. It's like it just happened. Because I even thought about like not sending that email or like putting that PS. Like I was like,
Yeah,
I don't
PS,
want to
yeah.
be that guy. But it was like, you know what? I have nothing
You
to
have
lose.
to.
I
You
have nothing to
definitely have to
lose.
be
Like, what
that
are you
guy.
gonna say?
Yeah.
Like, he's not gonna respond, or he's gonna say no, whatever. But oh well, next one, you know. And so he was cool, and yeah, man, you know, so and that worked out, and yeah, and then that took off. You know, it took off my career in scripted television and film.
How does
But
how,
but
how's-
it goes.
I was gonna say what's been the difference working for these projects with Narcos than everything else that you've done before? What's been the major difference that you could say?
I mean, big difference. I mean, it's
It's Narcos.
it's a
And it's Netflix.
yeah, it's a, you know, it's a, they're big projects, you know. I mean, like they're obviously very big scale international global projects, you know. And you know, especially Narcos and just in general, working in other, because you know I've done other shows. You know, I mean, it's just everything is more structured. You know, you do one job. You know, everyone has a job. Like you know, whether it's like you're in sound and editing, and you know, on set, you're doing one job. So that's a huge difference from anything that I've ever done.
So for somebody out there that doesn't know what post-production is, can you tell us kind of the process of how these episodes or these films, because they're films obviously, but how are they made? When do they, you know, take us briefly through conception, through the, you know, the conception of the project, you know, what the project is in terms of script writing and everything, and then take us through the production process, you know,
I guess it obviously starts like with an idea. Like an idea gets typed or written on paper. You know, your script. Then you know, then say they go shoot it. So in our case, with Narcos, it gets shot on location in Mexico. It gets shot over there, and so let's say an episode, you know, they shoot in blocks. So like they shoot, you know, Narcos is a 10-episode season. So they'll do 2 episodes per block. So that means they'll start with 1 and 2. They'll do that, then they'll go to 3 and 4, 5 and 6, like that. So they'll do a block in, I think, 22 days of shooting.
Wow. And
so every night after they shoot, we get media, which is the camera files, what they shot. They get transferred, all the video gets transferred to our offices in LA. So it's just, you know, electronic transfer. We get there in the morning the next day, and we get to our computer, open it up, and there's the video, you know, all the files. So we're always in editing, we're always 1 day behind. So if they shot on Monday, we're not gonna get the footage till Tuesday, right?
Tuesday morning.
So and then we do all the editing. So we focus on editing the footage together based on the script, and working eventually with eventually we'll work with the director and the producers, but we'll do all the editing, all the temp sound design, all the sound effects. We'll do some temp VFX, so just kind of try things out with VFX, all that stuff. Once that gets done, once we lock a cut, when we are finished with the cut, then we ship everything. So sound, the professional sound people work on the sound, doing the sound effects. The composer works on
music,
writing the music. The VFX guys work on doing the visual effects. The colorist, you know, so now everyone, that's post-production in general. There's all these departments: sound, picture, which is us. We cut things together. Visual effects, color. Everyone is doing one specific thing. And then those things all then come together, and then you get that delivered to Netflix, and then that's what you see, you know,
and specifically your part is putting all the footage together for an episode and making it, you know, look nice, and in just a few words, you know, or simple words, kind of making it make sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, like editing is, I think, you know, I don't think a lot of people know, and it's understandable, like what editing really is. I sure as hell did not really, what I thought was editing, it really isn't, like, until I got to this point, what it is. a lot of people think it's just putting shots together, which it is, that's part of it, but you're really, a lot of people say it's like the final rewrite of the script, which is true. You're really a storyteller. You're really trying to build a story. And so you're doing a lot of, taking the script and interpreting a certain way, and then seeing what you can do to, if you need to change things, rearrange scenes, and, you're doing all kinds of things. And then, so I work with an assistant, or even when I was an assistant. And so typically an assistant will do a lot of the temp sound work, sound design. So as an editor, you're doing the cutting and a lot of the music, the temp music. So we'll use, like, say, scores. At this point, Narcos, being that it's already been around, we use a lot of the temp score from our composer, Gustavo Santaolalla. And we can use those tracks that he's done before and use them now. But you can also, we'll use other films, other TV shows, and just create an idea. So when you get to that point where you are writing the new music, you can say, hey, this is the idea that I had, and then the composer can hear, and it's all right, I can see what I can do,
Right.
So
yeah, you actually have a lot of input into what's happening.
Certainly, yeah. The great thing about editing is because you work so closely with the director and the producers, and you're at the final stage of everything. So you're really, that's what they're saying. Like, editing is like, it's the final rewrite. It's where you go in. It's like, man, we wrote this, we shot this, and now we want to, even though we wrote it this way and we shot it this way, but it's not coming across the way we'd intended it to, because when you put it on paper, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to come out that way once it's shot. So, but obviously sometimes it does, but when it doesn't, it's like, then you have to go into saying, all right, what can we do to fix it? Fix it in post, as they say. And so you with what you have to find the solution, and to create a story the story that you want to tell,
Right. And that I'm sure, and that's a pretty huge challenge. So let me jump into something that I think a lot of people are wondering. Do you have interaction with the stars? Do you have interaction with the people that actually work? I know somebody was asking, is was it Diego Luna? Somebody, or is he handsome? I don't, Monica, I think my sister was asking.
Of course she would ask.
No, but yeah, what kind of experiences do you have with hanging out with the directors, with the producers, with the actual actors, and stuff like that, and doing the whole Hollywood thing?
I mean, like, well, so since in this case, Narcos Mexico gets shot in Mexico, we're not on set, so we do not have interaction with the actors. I mean, I've met them at the premiere and stuff like that, but that's about it. Like Pedro Pascal, who was in the Colombian Narcos, he came by the offices the other day, just to hang out and say hi. Like, for example, like right now, like, and the directors, like, for example, so my director, or, well, I should say, the directors that come by the office, once they're done shooting, they'll come by and do their days with editors at the offices. So we'll spend like 4 days working with them, and then we'll move on to the producer's cut, work with the producers, and then we'll work with Netflix. So it's like a process. It's like,
Right.
So the version, like, it starts off with like editor's cut. You get your editor's cut first. That's what you as an editor, your interpretation of it. Then it goes to editor's cut. They do their cut. Then it goes to producer's cut. Then it goes to the Netflix cut. Yeah. So it's like, multiple. You'll see different versions of that thing. I mean, like, if you compare it from like editor's cut to like Netflix cut, it'll probably be a completely different thing. Maybe not.
Let's do a couple of questions. Rafa Luna says,
I'm nervous.
Yeah, you ever make suggestions to Gustavo Santaolalla? What's his name?
Santaolalla.
Yeah. Have you made any suggestions that stuck?
No, how dare you talk to? You cannot give Gustavo Santaolalla. No, I'm just kidding. No, no. I mean, he's in the room and you're talking with him. I mean, he watches your cut and he watches what you do with music, and pretty much his old music. Old in the sense, like, for previous seasons or for other films or TV shows or even video games that he's done. And so if you put it in and then you say, hey, like, I like this cue, I wish it didn't have so much percussion. Yeah. And he'll go in and he'll give you a version that's kind of like that, you know. He'll take out the percussion, or if he writes new music and you come back and watch it, you're like, you know what, I liked it, but yeah, again, it's like maybe this little tweak, maybe the levels here, maybe take out the strings at this point, you know. So yeah, they're very receptive to your ideas and very collaborative. Great guy.
There's some questions out there that I don't think I want to read. Yeah. There's a lot of hamburger emojis that I see. Netflix. Somebody's saying Netflix.
I bet that's Shrek.
Yeah. So favorite. Let's talk about film right now. I mean, obviously, working for Netflix has been an amazing experience, and I want to ask you about what's coming up for Netflix, because I think you're not supposed to talk about it, but can you? No.
I'm on lockdown.
Top secret. All right, so let's talk about film. We probably have about like 12 minutes, and then we'll get to, hopefully, if you guys can post some pictures, not pictures, some posts, some questions for us. We'll have Joaquin ask some. Monica says, was it difficult working with the people in Una Vez Más? I think I can answer for that.
Oh man, that was a good. All kind of divas on that one.
Yeah. Let's talk about film. Well, let's talk about films right now. What are some of your favorite films or shows right now that you think are top notch in terms of streaming services or like Netflix shows or any of the services, or actual films that are on a theater?
Right. Well, I mean, I feel like last year with films, I thought it was a good year. I thought it was a solid year last year. But let me start off with right now. Right now, what I'm really into is Ozark. Ozark is, I think, really good. Highly recommended. I had started it back when it came out. I think I stopped. Not that I didn't like it. It was just I think it was just too close to the Breaking Bad thing, and I just kind of I just kind of stopped watching it. I picked it up again, and it's great. Highly recommended. I've watched The Outsider on HBO, and I think I'm on episode 4, and I think that's a really good show up to this point. I really like it. Tiger King, of course, jumping on the bandwagon.
I'm not gonna watch. I refuse to watch, man.
Really, it's bizarre, man. It's worth it, man. It's a good watch.
I'm still watching episodes of Friends and stuff.
Hey, man, that thing plays well to this point. That and The Office is great.
And how about films? Any particular films like in the last 12 months that you thought were amazing that people should see?
Oh man, I mean all the films that I thought were nominated last year for Best Oscar. I thought they were all very solid. Like I was, not a lot of people had a problem with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I went to see it twice in the theater, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed it.
All right, so obviously we've established that you're an expert in films and editing and all this stuff. People say that 1917 wasn't that good.
I could see the argument to 1917 why people would have a problem with it.
Because they don't know anything. They don't know better, or what?
Yeah, exactly. I question their taste. Exactly. No, I could understand why people would have a problem with it. I think for me, I'll say this. Well, I don't want to spoil too much, I guess, if people haven't seen it, but I guess story-wise, I could see why there was not such a big payoff at the end. I could see that. But no, man, that thing was amazing. That was one of the most incredible productions that I've seen ever.
That I agree.
Yeah. You know what? Even that film has more editing than you'd think it has.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. I know that the plot maybe wasn't as strong for people, but I thought it was just amazing. I would love spectacle. I would love to see that film maybe in virtual reality or 3D. Can you imagine just
you freak out, dude?
Yeah, you'll end up with PTSD. So now, Joaquin, right now in terms of the industry, let's see if they can post a little bit more pictures. And we talked about 1917, but if you guys can accept the cat's question, Rudy, we're not going to talk about cats. The cats. Butts.
There's a cat.
He's saying that somehow in post-production they added butts to or buttholes to cats.
The cat, yeah.
Okay, there you go, Rudy. You got your question answered.
Yep.
There you go. So let's just move forward because the show's bad already. This show's bad already, and we're talking about cats butts. In terms of Hollywood, what's going to happen? I know the whole lockdown thing's going on. What do you see happening for Hollywood and for, you know, the film industry and the show, the production industry in Hollywood and Los Angeles and everywhere?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like most things, it's shut down. I mean, definitely, that's the thing. Like with say post production and like being on set. The thing is, like a lot of post production is still happening because a lot of shows were able to finish shooting before this all happened. So that means that editors have the material and they could keep working. Like I talked to 4 friends today, or all colleagues, and you know they're working in the industry, and they're all still working. I mean, they might not last. They probably go for another week or 2, but they're still going. As far as like when things will be back up, I mean, I've heard rumors from like, you know, June, July, which I would say more July, till like, you know, September, October, you know, for things to come back. Me personally, I would say like the earliest probably August, where you see things being shot again, really.
Well,
but yeah, everything's shut down.
It's a difficult situation. I know. I mean, I know for you, it's been tough. But obviously, a lot of people that work in the industry are working in gigs, right? So
yeah,
a
exactly.
lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their, you know, their paycheck, and now they're looking for other things to do.
Yeah, and you know, yeah, I know exactly. I mean, like that's the thing. It's like, I mean, and there's certainly things I think out there to work on. I mean, I think if you really go out there, you know, if you want to edit, I think there's different, especially now, so much online content and people needing content and stuff like that. I'm sure there's probably stuff out there to do. But as far as like big productions, like you know, being on set and shooting, that obviously won't happen for a while.
We're about to finish up. What would be your advice for somebody that's working, or that's, you know, a young film student, or somebody that wants to go into this business? What would be some of the advice, or you know, some of the things that you would recommend to somebody that's looking to go into that business?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I guess I'll speak about editing because that's what I do and that's what I know. You know, but you know, first, obviously from the beginning, if you want to learn how to edit, you know, it's so easy now, given that the technology is so widely available. So that is like, you know, go download Avid Media Composer for free, you know, you know, what is it, Resolve for free, and get some media and start cutting, you know, and look at online tutorials, watch films, watch a lot of films, buy books on editing, like understand what editing really is, mm-hmm. and the theory behind it, and you know, so there's a lot of resources that you can, you know, that are out there for you to learn about editing. After that, I would say one of the big things is you have to be in LA. If you want to work in these big films and shows, then you have to be in LA. Right. You know, that's a must. And then from there, you know, say if you're new here, you'll probably have to be a production assistant, a post PA. And that is hard. That in itself is hard, man. Like, that's competitive. There's a whole podcast. My friend Zach did a podcast about that, about how just even being a post PA, how difficult it is to get into that. But it's all networking. It's all hustling. Really, that's what it is. It's networking, meeting the right people, and then getting into that, and then from there, like, it's a process. Then it's like you have to get into the union, right? And get your days, and you know, all that. But the big one is, in general, even before and after you're in the union, and to get work is to network. Like, networking is a thing that it takes some mastering. It takes, you know, some people are good at it and some people are not. And if you're not, it's like you have to get over that fear of like approaching people, because that's what it is. You have to be able to go up to people and say, hey, what's up? Like, you know, and talk. I mean, networking is like an art, you know, like, I mean, to get good at it. So it really is. If you have I think, you know, it's honestly like people that have like this fear, or, you know, or like just kind of like, you know, not great social skills or whatever, like, it really is important to work on that. Yeah. And then yeah.
All right, so a couple more questions and quick ones. The first one is, where are you going? You know, Netflix. Do you want to, you know, work on that show obviously you want to work for that show for a while, but what's your next goal looking forward in terms of personal accomplishments in the business?
I think something important for me is to like get diversify like my experience and my credits. Like I don't want to be tied down to one specific genre. You know, like I want to try a comedy. I want to do a horror show. You know, that's I think a goal of mine is
resume
to build that resume, to have different credits. So I'm just not that tied down to, you know, being the narco guy, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it's like, I think it's important, not just for me, but for everyone in doing this, to kind of get those different credits, get that experience in different genres, you know?
All right, 5 less questions, quick ones. Just answer in a few words. If you were to have coffee with somebody that you've never met, somebody famous from history in the past that's dead, who would you want to sit and have coffee with?
That's dead?
Or alive, or whatever.
Man, I mean, well, I would say one person, man. I think Martin Scorsese would definitely be up there.
Nice.
My boy Eddie Vedder, even though
Eddie Vedder.
have mixed feelings.
Oh, we didn't even get into Pearl Jam.
I know, man. That's part 2. Even though I'm little disappointed with this
new album.
His new album there, but you know what? I'm loyal to them, and that's fine.
How about favorite beer?
A favorite beer, man. I mean,
you can only have one.
Man, I'm still. You know what? I still am stuck on that Neptune Nectar that we had at Coronado Brewing. That unfortunately they don't make it anymore. I guess I haven't made it for a while. It was like a one-off, you know, thing. Okay. But that was a good beer, man. Neptune Nectar. If anyone has it, let me know.
Favorite coffee? How do you take your coffee? What's your favorite style of brew in terms of coffee?
I do pour over. The pour over brew method. And at home I have a Chemex, and at the office I have a ceramic. You know, it's called the Bee House. It's just a ceramic pour over. But my favorite right now is from this local shop. I try to support local businesses. It's in Highland Park. It's called Café de Leche, and they roast some really good beans there. Right. Majority I like from South America. I don't like the I don't know, people are gonna hate me for this, but I'm not a big fan of like the Ethiopian selection.
Very cool. And last one, favorite food.
My favorite dish.
Yeah, favorite food. Yeah, favorite dish.
My favorite dish is mole negro con pollo, yeah. Y con arroz.
Y con arrocito.
Yeah, and
then wash it down with.
Yeah, Neptune Nectar had one.
Neptune Nectar. All right, man. Well, it's been definitely a pretty crazy start to the show, to the first show ever. I don't know if this is going to happen again. I hope I can do this again. But I want to thank you, man, for the time. This is a cool conversation.
Cool, man. I liked it.
We're friends, but sometimes we don't get to have these deep conversations. And hopefully, I mean, if you're out there, let us know how it went. Give me some feedback. Send Joaquin a message.
Yeah, hit me
tell
up.
him to get a new mic or whatever. So that we can do
yeah, usually they work. They work, right?
Yeah, those are working pretty good, man.
That's good.
All right, man. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate the
time. Thank you,
time.
man. Thank you. This is awesome. I hope, keep doing it, man. I want to see who else you bring on here, man. This is awesome.
I have no idea, so I have a whole week to think about it. If you guys are out there, share this link with other people. Just, Joaquin is an awesome friend, but it's also example of how you can accomplish your goals if you really work at them. He went through a lot of things, that were difficult. He faced a lot of challenges and finally broke through, and now he's doing what he loves. You can do it as well if you want to. So
sure,
let us know your thoughts. Give me your thoughts and your comments. I'll keep working on this show. I think we can keep doing it. If you have any suggestions, send me your suggestions for guests on through Messenger. Hit me up, and then hopefully we'll see you Friday for Friday Night Live. Beto Gurmilan. All right, that's a wrap, guys. Thank you, guys.
Let's
put
man.
the music up.
Thanks, man.
See you guys.
Trophy up towards the stands, they scream. See my opponent shake hands, they scheme. Yeah, on how to get it back.
Just close the meeting.
The reason why I can never relax.
All right,